All of this was gonna be mine.
I asking simple question.
It's all like the.
I asking simple question.
It's-
Don't turn away.
He's a social mother.
Madeline!
How I gonna to have a baby with someone treat me the way he treat me?
Are you telling me that you're pregnant right now?
Yes. And I have a text.
He wasn't ready, not for the tone, not for the timing, not for the way her eyes stayed locked on his as she said it. I'm pregnant. She didn't say it softly. She didn't say it with a tremble. She said it like a strike. Like an announcement she'd been saving for the exact moment it would hurt the most. Luke blinked. No reaction. That empty second where your brain's trying to reboot and fail at the same time. Then she reached into her bag. No buildup, no hesitation. She tossed the test onto the bed between them. Positive, still wet enough to make him recoil. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked up at her. She hadn't moved. You'd expect tears, relief, fear. Something raw, but Madeline stood like a prosecutor with evidence. There was no joy in her face, just precision, calculation. It was war. She didn't need to say the rest. He already knew. This wasn't about starting a family. This was about ending a fantasy, the one where he thought he had control. He leaned forward, still silent, hoping maybe this was a test, a game, a setup, but she wasn't bluffing. Not anymore. He tried to reach for her hand. She pulled it back. You lied to me. 3 words, measured, final. And right there, Luke realized this baby wasn't a gift, it was a mirror. His dream of controlling the relationship, owning the business, steering the future, all of it shattered in that instant. But before we decide whose trap this really was, we need to go back. Not far, just a few hours earlier, to a hotel room where Madeline woke up sick. And Luke thought the only thing she needed was breakfast. He had no idea what was already growing inside her, or how fast it would destroy everything he thought he built. And she had no idea how much worse his lie was than she ever imagined. Not yet. The sun had barely hit the curtains and Madeline was already sitting up, clutching her stomach. She looked pale, exhausted, and pissed off all at once. Luke was still brushing his teeth when she groaned. Not dramatically, not for attention, just loud enough for herself. The kind of groan that comes from your body saying something isn't right. He stepped out, towel slung over his shoulder. You okay? She didn't answer. He asked again, slower this time. She blinked at him, then nodded, but her face said everything else. No, not really. Breakfast was a disaster. The eggs smelled like chemicals. The toast felt like chewing sand. Her favorite fruit tasted like metal. Luke laughed awkwardly. Maybe it's just travel stomach. You ate a lot last night. She didn't laugh. Every bite she tried to swallow pushed back like her body knew something she didn't. And Luke? He was too focused on the day's schedule, too busy lining up the site visit, the engineer, the blueprint meeting. He kept tapping on his phone, checking the weather, rushing through his coffee. You want to stay and rest? He asked, but it wasn't really a question, it was a heads up. Madeline wiped her mouth with a napkin and stood up. Let's go. That was the first warning. The resentment wasn't brewing, it was already cooked. In the car, the air felt heavy. She adjusted her seat 4 times, rolled the window down, then up. Nothing helped. I think I'm gonna throw up, she whispered. Luke offered her a bottle of water, half open, she pushed it away. He turned down the music and drove faster. She leaned her head back, eyes closed, breathing through her nose like she was trying not to scream or cry or do both. And he stayed silent. There was no hand on the leg. No, do you want me to pull over? No panic, because Luke wasn't focused on her. He was focused on the land. The same land he'd already decided wouldn't have her name on it. She didn't know that yet, but her body did. She jolted up in her seat, eyes sharp, voice louder now. Pull over, right here. Luke slowed down, confused. What, why, lemon, she snapped. I need lemon, now. He glanced at the gas station. You want lemon from here? Yes. Her tone didn't allow space for interpretation. He pulled in, parked, and walked inside. She didn't say thank you, didn't look at him. He came back 5 minutes later, paper bag in hand. Water, gum, ginger chews, and 2 lemons rolling at the bottom. He placed it gently in the backseat and got back behind the wheel. It should have ended there, but it didn't. She turned toward the back, saw the bag, and frowned. You didn't cut them, Luke raised an eyebrow. I'm driving. You know salt helps, she hissed. You could have asked for some. I got you lemons, Madeline. Not helpful like this. Her voice cracked on the last word. She wasn't yelling anymore, she was unraveling. Luke pulled over again, threw the car into park, and turned to face her. I'm trying, I'm seriously trying. She shook her head, holding back tears. No, you're doing what's convenient. You're never careful with me. That line hit harder than she meant it to, or maybe she meant it exactly like that. The lemons weren't the problem. They were proof. Proof she was always asking, and he was always doing the bare minimum. She wanted to be cared for like a partner. He treated her like a task, and that's when it started to click, for both of them. This wasn't a moment. This was a pattern. She stared at him, lips tight. He stared back, hands on the wheel. The bag with the lemons sat untouched in the back seat. Neither moved. Neither blinked, but something shifted. The trust they both pretended to have, it wasn't there anymore. And somewhere under the nausea, under the tension, under the quiet war, Madeline started putting pieces together. And Luke, still thinking he'd done enough, had no clue how far gone she already was. The sun was high by the time they reached the edge of the property. Madeline stepped out slowly, heels sinking slightly into the dirt, hand on her hip, sunglasses low. Luke was already 10 steps ahead, waving at the project engineer like a proud host. She looked around, exhaling like this was hers too. Their future, their land. The lake shimmered. The dirt path curved around the trees. The hill in the back would be perfect for a pool bar. Madeline smiled, imagining her name on brochures, her face in marketing photos, her voice in staff meetings. She turned to Luke. We really did it. He nodded, not quite looking at her. Yeah, the engineer clapped Luke on the back. You moved fast, this'll pay off big once it's built. Madeline didn't flinch, she stepped right in, chest up. We worked nonstop to get here. I was handling all the negotiations while he worked on finance. The engineer gave her a polite smile, nodded, then turned back to Luke, and Madeline didn't like that, she brushed it off. They followed him down a gravel path, shoes crunching, bugs buzzing. Luke was chatty, energized. Madeline talked big, louder than needed, marking her presence. She pointed at a spot near the trees. I want that area for an event deck. Picture sunset weddings, private dinners. The engineer took notes, glancing at Luke after every suggestion. Madeline noticed again. That glance, that pause, that pattern. Still, she kept talking. Because if she stopped, maybe she'd start to wonder. And Luke, he didn't say much. He nodded, asked smart questions, and stayed calm. Too calm. They reached the top of the property where the view opened wide. Madeline spun slowly, arms out. This is where we start. She smiled like a CEO, like someone claiming her ground. Luke folded his arms and watched her. No correction, no validation, just a long, unreadable stare. She thought it was mutual. But his silence was permission, not promise. The engineer pulled out the plans. Luke held them, flipping pages like a man who already saw the finish line. Madeline stood behind him, hand on his shoulder, whispering ideas about pool tiles and room designs. But the camera, if there was one, wouldn't be on her. It would be on him. On his hands gripping papers she'd never signed. On his face holding back a truth he wasn't ready to say out loud. Not here, not yet. Because to him, this wasn't a shared dream. It was a presentation. And she was standing in a showroom, not on her land, not in her future. She just didn't know that yet. She took a slow breath. The kind you take when you know something's about to shift and you don't want to let it show. The blueprint was laid across the hood of the truck. The engineer was talking about logistics, permits, drainage. Luke was nodding, fully tuned in. Then he turned to her, smiled like it was just another sentence in a long, productive day. So, I was thinking, whatever lot you want us to live on, I'll put that in both our names. Her eyes twitched just a little. She didn't respond right away. He kept talking, moving on to something about solar panels, but her mind stuck. Not the house, the wording, that, lot, in both our names. She cut him off, trying to sound casual. Wait, you mean the hotel lot, right? Luke paused. No, the house, where we'll live. The business stuff, the hotel and all that, that'll stay in my name, but your name will be on the home. The engineer kept nodding, completely unaware of the train that just derailed between them. She froze fully, then turned toward him. Her face didn't move but her voice dropped. That's different from what you said before. He glanced away. Not really. I said we'd share the future. That means our home. Madeline was quiet. Too quiet. This wasn't miscommunication. This was omission. She remembered exactly what he'd said 2 weeks ago when she was ready to leave him. You'll be my partner. You'll be part of the hotel. Now, it's a home, a place to sleep. A bone thrown to someone who thought she was building something. Her lips curled, but not into a smile. Into realization. She'd been sold a dream, and he'd kept the deed. Luke tried again. It's not about excluding you. It's just about protecting my investment. She blinked twice, still not moving. So, was this always your plan? He looked at the dirt, the papers, anywhere but her eyes. That was the answer. She didn't need him to say yes. Because he already had. She didn't say anything, not a word. Luke kept going, trying to fill the silence like it was a hole he could patch with enough sound. I just wanted to make sure everything stays clean. I mean, in case if something happens. Her arms folded slowly, he kept talking. I wasn't trying to hide anything. I just thought it was safer, you know, for both of us. Still nothing. He was getting nervous now and it showed. You've seen how relationships go. Things can fall apart. I needed to protect myself. Madeline looked at him, dead straight, and nodded. That nod scared him more than yelling would have, because it wasn't understanding, it was confirmation. Confirmation that she finally understood what kind of deal this really was. He didn't plan for this to fail. He expected it to. She bit the inside of her cheek, took a shallow breath, and turned away. Luke leaned in slightly, like maybe she hadn't heard him right. Maybe if he explained it one more time, she'd see it from his side. But this wasn't about sides anymore, it was about a pattern. She thought about the months they spent arguing about the future. How he always said he wanted peace. How every time she'd asked to be included in the plan, he gave her vague reassurances and promises that sounded real enough to calm her down, but always empty in the end. And now here they were, standing on land he claimed was for them, holding plans she thought were for their business, and all of it was his, not by accident, by design. She wasn't yelling because the truth was louder than any fight. Luke stood there awkwardly, hands in his pockets, pretending to watch the wind move the trees. She kept her back to him, eyes locked on the lake, because if she turned around she might scream, or she might cry, or worse, she might say something she couldn't take back, so instead she said nothing. And that silence was the loudest betrayal of them all. She turned around, finally, but her eyes weren't red. They were sharp. Luke expected tears, or a slap. Or maybe that monologue she always gave when she felt cornered, but what he got instead was worse. Madeline smiled, not the kind that forgives, the kind that plans. She walked past him, slowly, deliberately, and picked up the blueprint off the hood. Held it for a moment, scanned it like she was studying coordinates. You said I'd be part of this, she said flatly. Luke hesitated. I didn't say, you said business venture. With me, you said that. I know what you meant. I know exactly what you meant. Her voice wasn't cold, it was precise, like every syllable had been checked before release. She folded the blueprint and handed it back, then took a step closer, not in affection, in challenge. You made promises when I was packing my bags. Luke swallowed, she nodded. And now that I'm locked in, everything changes. He stayed quiet. She looked down at her hands. You used to panic when I threatened to leave. Now you talk like you've already replaced me. I haven't replaced you, he said quickly. No, you've just erased me. The girl who once begged for reassurance was gone. Standing here now was someone who'd already decided how to hit back. He could feel it. Her whole energy shifted. No raised voice. No slamming car doors. That kind of calm only comes when someone knows their next move. Luke tried to pivot. Let's not do this now. The engineer's still around. This isn't the time. But Madeline wasn't doing this now. She was starting it. She brushed past him, walking back toward the car. Luke called after her. She didn't respond. She didn't need to, because something new had entered the story. Not a baby. Not yet. But something he couldn't buy off, ignore, or manage. She had time. She had patience. And now she had a reason. It was late. The lights in their hotel room were dimmed, and Madeline had one foot in her suitcase. That was the night she almost left. The night after the club, the one with the stripper, the one Luke claimed was a misunderstanding. She'd screamed, he'd begged. Then she'd gone quiet, and he got desperate. That's when the promise came. I want to build something with you, he said. This business, this life, we do it together. She had paused, looked at him like she wasn't sure if he was being real or just trying to stall her exit. We'll put a lot in our name, he added. That line stuck, not because of what it promised, but because of what it almost promised. It was vague, slippery, not a contract, a concept, but it worked. She'd closed the suitcase, sat back down. Now, standing on land she thought they'd share, that same line came back like a bruise being pressed. A lot in our name. He didn't mean the hotel, he meant the house, the part that wouldn't make money. The part that wouldn't matter if things went south. It wasn't just what he was offering now, it was what he'd allowed her to believe back then. He never said she'd be co-owner, but he never corrected her when she started calling it their investment. When she told her sister they were building a hotel together, he smiled. When she drafted that first post for Instagram, so proud of our journey, he didn't stop her. He let the fantasy live, because it kept her there. Every lie isn't always spoken. Some are built out of silence. And in hindsight, it was never about protecting her. It was about protecting the leverage. She was never invited to the table. She was placed next to it. Close enough to feel involved. Far enough to stay disposable. Luke closed the door behind them gently, like quieter footsteps might erase the tension still hanging in the air. Madeline didn't take off her shoes. She sat at the edge of the bed, back straight, arms stiff at her sides. He stayed near the mini-fridge, hands still in his jacket, trying to think of the right place to start. I didn't mean to trick you, he said. She said nothing. I needed to make sure I didn't lose everything if we broke up. Still nothing. He stepped forward, cautiously, like she might shatter if he moved too fast. You know how risky this is. I didn't think we'd fall apart. I've been sick for weeks, she said. Luke stopped mid-sentence. Madeline looked up, eyes clear. 2 months, nausea, exhaustion, my body's been screaming at me. And I didn't want to believe it because I didn't want this to be the reason we stay stuck. He blinked, confused. Wait, I took a test, she cut in. It's positive. His breath caught. I'm pregnant. No music, no gasp. No rush of emotion, just facts. She stood, walked to her purse, and pulled out the test, the one from earlier. She placed it gently on the table like she was filing evidence. Luke sat down, or more like fell. His knees didn't fully cooperate. I thought we were being careful, he whispered. No, she said calmly. You thought I was bluffing when I said no protection. You thought you could control the risk. He looked up, face pale. Are you sure? Yes. And that's when the room shifted. Because for the first time, the consequences weren't hers, they were his. He'd designed the perfect trap: offer her love, withhold the power, protect the assets, and keep her close enough to control. But now, there was no clean exit anymore. This wasn't a breakup. This was a contract with a heartbeat, and whether he signed it or not, it was binding. She didn't cry, he didn't fight. They both sat in silence, the kind that doesn't ask for comfort. The kind that confirms everything's been said. Luke rubbed his hands together slowly, like he could warm his way out of this. But he didn't say sorry. He didn't reach for her. He didn't ask what she wanted to do next. Madeline watched him, not with anger, with detachment. I stayed, she said, because I thought we were building something. He nodded once. You knew I wasn't leaving. That's why you stopped pretending. He didn't argue, and that was it. No more justifications, no more script. Because deep down, they both knew this wasn't a love story gone wrong. It had never been a love story to begin with. Luke had courted her with offers, trips, business plans, sweet nothings that sounded like long-term vision but were really just short-term management. He didn't nurture her, he handled her. She wasn't a partner. She was a risk he thought he could contain. And Madeline, she hadn't been fooled. Not completely, not for long. She'd seen the gaps between his words. She clocked the power plays. She stayed not because she believed the dream, but because she was waiting for the right moment to take her piece. They didn't fall in love. They entered a negotiation with feelings attached. Now, a baby sat in the middle of that failed contract. Not a symbol of unity, a sentence neither of them could avoid. 18 years, minimum. Luke didn't want to be trapped, so he lied. Madeline didn't want to be erased, so she stayed. Now both are stuck in a deal where neither gets what they wanted, but both lose if they walk away. He thought property titles would protect him. She thought pregnancy would reclaim her place. Neither of them accounted for the truth. You can't build a future on control, not without it turning on you. And somewhere between Luke's blueprints and Madeline's test strip, the cost of their game revealed itself. Not in a fight, not in a breakup, in quiet, in stillness. And in a future they're both locked into together, but not equal. Because now, whether they marry or not, love each other or not, forgive each other or not, they're bound. And the next story starts with who tries to break free first.